You're listening to Big World Network.
Incubus, Season 2, Episode 3, written and read by Amanda Meuwissen. The third woman's hand shot out to touch Nathan's face before he had time to react. Heat surged into Nathan's body at the contact of her skin, carrying no scent at all, only feeling. He was reminded for a brief moment of Sasha sharing the feeding experience with him, only this heat had nothing to do with pleasure. Nathan was so angry. "Nate!" Red flashed behind Nathan's eyes. His vision blurred and he felt his hands clenching into fists, so tight that he could feel his nails biting into his palms. Someone grabbed him by the arm and pulled. Images flew past him as he was forced to move, even though he could barely focus on what was in front of him. He was running, stumbling forward as he was dragged away from the Weird Sisters and out into the night. Distantly, Nathan could hear Jim and Sasha yelling to each other that they needed to get away, get back to the hotel and come up with a new plan. The rational part of Nathan's brain agreed, but all he could think about was how stupid he had been for getting ambushed, how stupid the whole plan had been, the whole damn thing, and how mad it made him that Jim was holding his goddamn hand. Nathan wrenched his arm out of Jim's grasp, skidding to a stop in the middle of the dark street. Everything in his vision looked red and jagged. "Stop treating me like a kid because of 2 fucking minutes of difference!" Nathan yelled at his brother, who already looked panicked that Nathan had stopped running. "This is all your fault. You never listen to me. Why do you always have to fuck everything up when I just want you to listen?" He very nearly screamed, pushing Jim hard in the chest with both hands. Jim tripped over his feet in surprise. "Nate," he said, looking at Nathan, hurt. "What are you talking about?" "We have to get back to the hotel," said Sasha, rushing up to both of them and grabbing Nathan's arm as Jim had before. "We don't have time for this." "Don't touch me!" Nathan yelled louder, pushing Sasha away as hard as he had pushed his brother. He was disgusted and so blindingly angry at both of them, at everything, that the only thing he could imagine bringing him peace was to get rid of them both. He didn't realize he was pulling out his gun until Jim tackled him to the ground. "Stop it! Just stop it!" Jim cried. It was like waking up from a deep sleep. Nathan was on his back, with Jim's heavy weight on top of him, holding each of his wrists to the ground. The gun lay useless beside him. Nathan didn't really remember how he had gotten away from the 3 Fey women, or why he had been so angry in the first place. All of his fury dripped away, and he felt perfectly calm, relaxed and yielding under Jim. I'm okay," Nathan said. "I'm sorry, Jim. One of them touched me, and I was just so mad. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm okay. He looked into his brother's eyes, repeating that mantra, as if they were kids again and needed each other's reassurance to believe in anything. Jim sat back, his breathing tight and hands shaking as he released Nathan's wrists. Nathan felt so foolish when they were getting up, and he had to reach back down to retrieve his gun from the ground. "You banished their power just by touching him," Sasha said in awe, like he wouldn't have believed anything like that was possible. "How did you do that?" Jim stammered. "I've no idea. I just wanted him to calm down, and I don't know. I didn't try to do anything. I just did it," Sasha finished. "It doesn't matter. We have to go," said Nathan, in his right mind enough to know that they really needed to move. "We have to get somewhere safe before the witches of Eastwick catch up to us. Come on." This time it was Nathan grabbing Jim and Sasha by the arms and pulling them along until somehow they reached the hotel. Nathan's pulse wasn't racing as much anymore, and his skin didn't feel so terribly hot. Jim's touch had soothed him, but he still felt shaken from the Fae's influence that had been enough to get him to pull a gun on his brother. "There were 3 women," Sasha said, once they had made it back to Jim and Nathan's room. "It has to be Weird Sisters." "That was my guess," said Nathan, "and I saw their eyes. They're dark she." "What? You mean someone summoned them?" said Jim. "No, came the somewhat faded voice of Walter, appearing with a flicker again, but able to join them now that enough distance had been put between them and the she. "I do not believe they were summoned, Nathan. This feels different, stronger." Nathan swallowed. Weird sisters were bad enough. They were always triplets, identical dark or light she, gifted with the power of 3, and often used as enforcers for whichever court they served. But she of the Dark Court weren't supposed to be able to leave the Vale unless they were summoned by a powerful spell, the way Nathan had summoned the messenger. "The one who touched me said... She said they came here on their own," Nathan lied, avoiding looking at Walter for fear of giving himself away in front of Sasha. "That's not possible," said Jim. "Darkshi haven't been able to leave the Vale on their own for thousands of years." "You're sure that's what she said?" Sasha asked. "Maybe she was lying." Nathan glanced at Walter before replying, and then looked to Jim, saying as much as he could with his eyes, that Walter was the messenger, and certain of what he was saying. "She wasn't lying," he said. "If that's really true, then something bigger than just us is going on here," said Sasha. "But you might be right. I think I know which weird sisters we're dealing with. The Muses. That's why it seemed like a nymph was causing everything." He leaned back against the wall beside the window and peered out of the curtain at the street below. The Muses are weird sisters that personify the basest of earthly excess, want of material things, desire of the flesh, and violence. They're lower-ranking dark she, but still some of the oldest weird sisters I know of. I don't think there is a way to summon them. "When they had me surrounded, violence must have been the one that touched me," said Nathan. "She had her hands on me before I could do anything, and I just..." He trailed, shuddering at the remaining ache left by that power. "You couldn't have avoided it," said Jim. "We're no match for weird sisters, especially if they found a way out of the Vale. The point of all this is to find Dark Fae we can muscle info out of, not hand you right to them." "But we can't just leave," Nathan shot back. "I don't think these Muses have any plans to move on. They'll stay in Crofton until they got the whole town turned against each other and everyone's dead." Silence drifted between them as the brothers looked at each other and at Sasha, and agreed that they were not about to cut and run. "Okay," said Sasha. "We need to make the next move if we can. Chasing after them now would only get us killed. I vote we stay in tonight, all in this one room with a lookout at all times. If they don't come for us first, then tomorrow we'll see what we can do in the daylight." Nathan volunteered to keep lookout first, while Jim and Sasha slept. Walter had disappeared again, since he was still flickering occasionally after coming into such close contact with powerful she. Staring at the still streets and mostly empty parking lot outside, Nathan's eyes grew heavy. There had been no signs that the Muses were planning an attack, but he fought to stay awake and keep a constant vigil. They hadn't had time to consider the larger implications of the Muses being there unsummoned, which shouldn't have even been possible. The thought of that changing, of Dark She being able to cross over from the Vale whenever they wanted, made Nathan shudder. Halfway into his turn on watch, Nathan glanced at the bed that would have been his, and saw that Sasha was stirring. The Incubus soon sat up, blinking awake. "Can't sleep," Sasha mouthed, half-dressed, but still wearing his jeans that, like all of his pants, hung low when he stood, so that his tattoo peeked over the waistband. "Want some company?" he asked, once he had made his way across the room. Nathan was slumped heavily in a chair beside the window. He gestured to the remaining chair by the small table that Sasha then took and slid into place beside him. For a few minutes, they sat in silence. Sasha didn't make any small talk, and Nathan didn't feel the need to feel the quiet. He actually found himself enjoying the company for company's sake, which was a rare thing, though he was still relieved to have the silence broken when Sasha spoke. "I keep meaning to ask you," Sasha said, his voice kept low for Jim's sake. "Your necklace. I never see you without it. Must be something special, huh?" Nathan stared down at the chain around his neck, with his father's ring hidden beneath his shirt. He tugged at it to reveal what Sasha had probably assumed would be a pendant, but was actually a simple band of white gold. "It was our dad's," he said, when Sasha's eyes grew wide. "Never really understood why Mom gave it to me instead of Jim. She was having it clean for Dad the day he..." Nathan couldn't quite say it, but he smiled somberly, knowing Sasha would understand. I'm sorry. I'm sure it was very different for you than it was for me, Sasha said, smiling back at Nathan in the dark, as they both leaned against the window and passed occasional glances outside to keep watch. I was 16 when I went out on my own. You and Jim have been taking care of each other for longer than that, from what I've heard. Nathan frowned. Don't know what I think about all this seal gossip about me and my brother circulating out there, though I guess I shouldn't be surprised with how much we've been hunted over the years. Sure, it was rough, he said. But to tell you the truth, I'm glad I know the things I know. I don't want to think what it would be like to be a civilian in this mess. Sasha nodded and curved his back in a stretch, proving how tired he was despite not being able to sleep. Guess we have a lot in common. How do you mean? Like how we grew up, how we survived on our own, and... Sasha's head tilted toward Nathan with a flick of a sad smile. Both our parents were killed by seals. There was something almost dark in the way Sasha said that, darker than Nathan thought even he sounded when remembering his parents' death. He had at least known them, been old enough to remember them, the way they looked, the way they loved him and his brother. It had to be so much harder for Sasha. You were still in diapers when they died? Nathan asked. 3 months old, I think, Sasha said. And the seal that did it was a friend of your dad's? Sasha nodded. Ever track him down? Didn't need to. He got himself killed a few weeks after that, I heard. Some hunt gone wrong. No one else knew my dad had become an incubus. The other seals thought the guy just snapped. Maybe it was some of them that did him in and not a hunt at all. Sometimes I like to think it was karma, that he got what he deserved. Other times, you kind of wish he was still around, so you could do the job yourself. Sasha didn't say anything, just stared forward with his smile wavering. I know the feeling, Nathan said. The seal that got our parents is still out there, been hunting us for years. We've had run-ins with other seals too, but somehow he always manages to catch up to us. Almost got the better of us a few times too. We always run, and every time I think about how much I just want to... Anger rose to the surface as Nathan trailed, thinking of Gabriel. But he didn't finish the threat. One day I'd love to be rid of him. But watching out for Jim has to come first. Yeah, I sort of got that impression, said Sasha, with an honest curve of his lips again. I don't know many other seals. Too much of a risk that they might find out what I really am. I doubt there are any as enlightened as my dad was, so I can sympathize. It might not seem like much consolation, but at least you and Jim always had each other, even without your parents. Yeah, except the 2 weeks those bastards took him away. This life is one thing, but this life alone? Nathan caught himself when he looked over at Sasha, and those false blue eyes were glowing at him in the dark. Sasha had done alone his entire life. Hey, Nathan said, with guilt rising in his throat. I didn't mean... Don't worry about it. I won't lie that being alone has been hard, but I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm happy to be helping you guys. Really. Sasha's eyes were heavy-lidded, even if just for the company. A rush of heat filled Nathan's face. He wasn't used to anyone relying on him, not anyone other than Jim, and certainly not for the joy of his company. Hey, but you always had your aunt, right? He said quickly. You weren't completely alone, and she's not about to abandon you, even if those elders of yours are idiots. Sasha laughed quietly, much as it had to sting to be reminded of that. I'm real sorry about that whole banishing you thing, Nathan tried to say as comfortingly as he could. It's bullshit if you ask me. You didn't do anything wrong. Thanks, Sasha said, smiling still, if a little sorrowfully. And my aunt, Shy, she really has been great, even with what happened with Sabine. Back when I was younger, she helped me find my parents' veil slip. It was my mom's originally, but Dad had stored stuff in there too, so I have all of his notes on being a seal, his equipment, even these old guitars. Sometimes it feels like they're with me, leading me along through everything. Yeah, Nathan nodded, clutching absently at his father's ring. Hey, did you say your dad had guitars? What kind? Just a couple acoustics. Nice, though. Sweet. Our dad used to play, too. When we were little, I remember he loved that old guitar. You play, or just keep them around for show? Sasha gave an almost mockingly modest shrug. I don't suck. Better at singing. And it gets the bills paid once in a while. Bills paid? Sure. You have to have some way you guys make quick cash besides fey trades. Nathan shuddered at the thought. I'll play cards or hustle a little pool now and again, but only if we get desperate. Well, I hate poker and blackjack, and I pretty much suck at pool, said Sasha. But if I pass a bar or someplace needing a night's entertainment, I'll play and sing a little. Usually I'd have one of my dad's guitars with me, but one of them got smashed a few hunts back. Haven't had the heart to pick up the other one. Hazard of the trade, huh? Said Nathan. Too bad. Might have been nice to hear you play. He shared an appreciative smile with Sasha, and, even though they were close, their chairs practically touching, with the scent of Sasha thick in the air, Nathan didn't feel uncomfortable at all. A yawn caught him by surprise, and he glanced down at his watch. There were still a few minutes left before Sasha was supposed to take over his shift. I got you covered if you want to hit the hay early, Sasha said. Nah, I got time yet. Don't sweat it, I'm up anyway. Another yawn stretched at Nathan's mouth. Well, if you're gonna insist, he said, and gratefully stood to head for the open bed. We'll figure this all out tomorrow, Sasha said quietly after him. Night, Nate. Yeah, good night. Once Nathan was settled under the covers, he stole a glance at Sasha by the window and found the Incubus staring out at the night, looking still and solid as anything, as if nothing could move him. It was an easy strength that Nathan admired, and had nothing to do with the real physical strength Sasha possessed. It was quiet, the kind of strength that always made Nathan think of his parents, and that he never thought he had enough of himself. Seeing Sasha like that made Nathan feel safe, and he drifted easily into a much-needed sleep.
You're listening to Big World Network.